questions remain about an unidentified object.
We need to discuss this as a threat and how do we respond to it.
Shot down over Alaska. A fight to remove invasive species.
It displaces your natural area.
Taking over a South Florida park. After Super Bowl parties.
We're expecting probably around 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of food.
What happens to all the waste? And from the game to the halftime performance. We've got the sights and sounds of football's biggest night. These stories and more coming up on Newsbreak.
Hello, South Florida. I'm Elena Key.
I'm Samantha Gutierrez. Today is Monday, February 13, 2023.
Live from the FIU Lee Kaplan School of Journalism and Media, this is SFMN Newsbreak.
Yet another shoot-down is in the news this morning. This time, it was an undetected, unidentified object in the area of the Great Lakes. Another unidentified object was shot down in the U.S. airspace at President Biden's order.
The Pentagon has confirmed that F-16 fighter jets shot down a high-altitude device over Michigan yesterday. This is the fourth object shot down in the U.S. in a week, and lawmakers want answers.
This is a turning point where we need to discuss this as a threat and how do we respond to it.
I have real concerns about why the administration is not being more forthcoming with everything that it knows.
The Department of Defense says that the object shot down on Friday and Saturday did not resemble the suspected Chinese spy balloon from last week. The Pentagon says the object shot down yesterday was not a military threat, but rather a flight hazard.
Efforts continue this morning at a park in North Miami, which is fighting against invasive species. The network's Leanne Abatar-Bush is live at Enchanted Forest Park this morning.
Good morning, South Florida. So we are here in the Enchanted Forest Park in North Miami. Now, this park was built in 1990 and was essentially known for its beautiful vegetation, but now it has become a hotbed for all the non-native invasive species here in South Florida. It displaces your natural area. So we have native plants that are here that the native birds and wildlife enjoy, and that's what they're adapted to using. So when you get these invasive plants that come in, they displace the natives and they choke everything out, and it displaces the animals that are used to living there because it kind of crowds them out.
The park organizes cleanup events to help eradicate invasive plants, but without proper funding, it's hard to make a change.
My shift changes after COVID, and that allowed me to start bringing in volunteers. And so now we have had over 1,000 volunteers just since 2 years ago.
There is no place in South Florida that is a natural area that doesn't need some help. And there is no place in Florida that is a natural area that has enough money to fund help. We depend on volunteers.
Syngonium is one of our most challenging invasive plants to eradicate because even though it grows very slowly, it has tendrils that come out of the side of the vine, and so it's very tedious. You have to remove all of the tendrils out of the ground, or if you leave pieces of it, then it can grow back.
Well, this one is hard to remove because it tangles around every single branch of the tree, and when you're gonna try to pull it out, it has spikes and it's really strong. I don't know if you can see it, you know, it's about right now. Pretty easy right now, but if you try to pull it like that from the bottom, it's just like, it's hard.
So you have to keep going back over and over and over your same areas to remove. In the meantime, it's growing somewhere else. And then you have air potato vine that can have the potential to grow as much as 7 inches a day. And the potatoes are easy to pick up.
The good part about the air potato in winter, because it gets cold, it's so easy, they die, and it's just so easy to pull it out.
The air potato and the syngonium are not the only harmful plants in the park. Other invasive plants include shoe button ardija, Brazilian pepper, and rosary pea.
They all have their ways of, being invasive, and it's just all as a whole makes it just that much different. You can also help out by signing up for volunteering on Hands On Miami. Or
or you can contact the park management directly. Live at the Enchanted Forest Park, Alnayan Abu Sarbush reporting for the South Florida Media Network.
The Kansas City Chiefs were led to Super Bowl victory last night by the season and game MVP, Patrick Mahomes. All eyes are on Mahomes as he battled it out yesterday in Arizona. He recovered from an injury at the end of the first half and was able to help his team bounce back. A last-second field goal that broke a tie and brought the title back to Kansas City. After the game ended, Mahomes was given the title of Super Bowl MVP for the second time in his career.
We just challenged each other, man, to leave everything out there. And I don't want to say we played tight in the first half, but you didn't see that same joy that we play with. And I wanted guys to just know that everything we worked for is for this moment. You have to enjoy this moment. You can't let the moment overtake you.
Mahomes and the rest of the Chiefs still have more celebrating to do with their victory parade in Kansas City, scheduled for Wednesday.
During yesterday's halftime, one of the biggest pop icons returned to music and made a big debut. Rihanna fans have been hoping for new music for quite some time. Her Super Bowl performance last night is the closest they've gotten so far. The artist performed some of her greatest hits and revealed she was pregnant with her second child.
Most people who experience Super Bowl aren't in the stadium, but the DC Bureau reporter Nicole Ardila reports all those Super Bowl parties led to a lot of food waste.
The Big Board Bar here is one of the many places where NFL fans gather to watch the Super Bowl and snack on chicken wings, burgers, and beer. But much of the food that's been bought and prepared for these Super Bowl parties goes to waste, impacting food insecurity in the country.
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, about 34 million people in the United States are food insecure. 9 million of them are children. The Food Recovery Network is a nonprofit organization with chapters across the U.S. that recovers consumable food waste at Super Bowl tailgate parties to combat food insecurity.
Last year at the tailgate party where we recovered food, we recovered about 2,000 pounds of food. The year before that, when it was in Miami, we recovered about 5,000 pounds of food. So this year, we're expecting probably around 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of food that we will be able to recover from that event and bring it to Phoenix Rescue Mission.
The National Chicken Council expected nearly 1.5 billion chicken wings to be consumed on Super Bowl weekend, the highest record projected. Professor Mahadev Bhatt at Florida International University calculated that more than 7,000 tons of those wings are wasted.
Food waste will end up in landfills, and we have a very small percentage, 10-15% of that waste may be either composted or recycled.
Food waste is the biggest contributor to landfills, according to Recycle Track Systems, a waste-conscious collection service. Americans discard about 80 billion pounds of food every year, which is more than any country in the world.
The food waste that you can't control is what you have when people don't finish what they've got brought to them. Most of that ends up in the trash. We try to have our portion sizes correctly so that we don't have a lot, and our menu is a la carte, but you can't stop it.
Food Recovery Network suggests to stay mindful of not to overproduce and consume food and to reuse whatever is left over. Reporting from Washington, D.C., I'm Nicole Ardila for the South Florida Media Network.
Marlins baseball fans were able to meet their favorite players this past weekend at Lone Depot Park as the Fish hosted a fan fest. The network's Carlton Gillespie was there with more of the story.
We may be more than a month away from opening day, but you wouldn't know it from looking at the crowd here at Lone Depot Park. Today, Marlins fans are out in droves to celebrate the annual Fan Fest. This free event is the ultimate experience for fans of all ages. The party starts outside with food trucks and live music before fans head into the ballpark for a unique behind-the-scenes experience.
Yeah, really excited for Fan Fest. Been looking forward to this day for over a month, and I'm definitely very excited to meet the players and get some pictures and autographs. I brought a baseball and a pen, and just excited for pretty much everything.
No, I've been to every Marlins Fan Fest. I got donuts from Dontrell Willis back in the day. I love this stuff.
Fans will have the opportunity to meet their favorite Marlins players and coaches, grab some autographs, and take a tour of the dugout and clubhouse.
Definitely Jazz and Sandy, but pretty much everyone. I'm a huge Marlins fan, so.
Sandy Alcantara. I think he just won the Cy Young Award, so I would love to really meet him.
I'd say Sandy. I mean, Jazz is the most exciting, but Sandy for sure.
I met Conine, I met CJ, I talked to Skip. It It was really a wonderful experience where I got to be one-on-one with them and had a real personal experience. It's something that you really build a memory off of.
The excitement of the day's events aside, a busy off-season for the Fish has fans optimistic about the upcoming season.
I think the Marlins should be in for a better year. I don't want to get my hopes up too high because usually they do disappoint, but the roster definitely looks better.
All I care is that they're happy and are themselves and that they're entertaining. I find the whole experience to be positive, whether they win or lose. But of course, when they win the World Series, it's always the best.
The next time Marlins fans will see their favorite players here, they'll be wearing the jerseys of their home countries as the World Baseball Classic kicks off March 11th right here at Lone Depot Park.
That was Carlton Gillespie reporting. Up next, the Marlins will move up to Jupiter, continuing their spring training.
Speaking of sports, some four-legged football players also play annually in February.
That's still ahead, and so is this story.
I just try to promote it in a certain way to make people around the world think differently.
A museum dedicated to voodoo culture is in the works in North Miami. We've got a sneak peek. Newsbreak will be back in 2 minutes.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
There are a lot of ways to reach out to a friend about their mental health. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org.
Bill is a family man. He invests his money wisely and provides a good life for his children. Just one problem. He often opens emails from senders he doesn't know, and his computer is not password protected. One day, Bill checked his bank account and 94% of malware attacks originate from emails. Don't be like Bill. Take your cybersecurity seriously.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
There could soon be a North Miami museum dedicated to the practice and celebration of voodoo culture. Many people have their misconceptions about voodoo.
But one local man wants to shed a positive light on his culture.
If you've ever driven down 135th Street in North Miami, you've more than likely passed by the Miami International Voodoo Museum. FIU alumni Emmanuel Million started collecting and showing voodoo artwork about 4 years ago in efforts to promote Haitian and voodoo culture.
Voodoo is considered as my culture. I just try to promote it in a certain way to make people around the world think differently about voodoo.
Miami's voodoo culture is being preserved all in one man's backyard. If you look behind me, you can see he has everything from paintings to statues. Although voodoo can be traced back to West Africa, the culture spread throughout many countries outside of the continent.
Voodoo varies different area, but you can see the roots of voodoo is the same in Brazil and Venezuela, and this is why I call this international. I do have pieces from Brazil, Colombia, Cuba, Puerto Rico.
Oftentimes there's a negative stigma surrounding voodoo, but through sharing the art that comes from the cultural practice, many plans to flip the script.
People always think of voodoo using a doll to pin the doll to send a curse at people, and voodoo is all about bad things. So it's all false, and it's 400, 500 years of false information. That's something I'll try to change through education, through this.
The Miami International Voodoo Museum has a website as well as a GoFundMe. Manny is raising money in hopes of finding the museum a permanent home where he can share and preserve voodoo culture.
So when people come to Miami, this is the place to come to visit, to see cultural tourism.
I'm Hawa Ezel, South Florida Media Network.
Who knew Super Bowl Sunday could be so adorable, and people tuned in for the big game? Another historic event also took place, the 19th annual Puppy Bowl. For the first time ever, the teams went into overtime as Team Rough and Team Fluff were tied at 80, all at the end of regulation. When the final whistle blew, Team Fluff received the Lombardi Trophy with a victory of 87-83. This year's event featured 122 puppies chosen from 67 animal shelters and rescue centers across the country. The Puppy Bowl is held each year to raise awareness about animal adoption since 2005.
That's all the time we have for Newsbreak. I'm Samantha Gutierrez.
I'm Elena Key. Get more news anytime at sfmn.fiu.edu.